Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back. Today I'm kicking off a new reading vlog because I wanted to go ahead and try and read more of my Q1 pre-orders. I did a pretty good job this year actually of reading my pre-orders from the first quarter of the year, and I just have a handful left that I haven't gotten to. So that's the goal of this video, is to try and get to those because I'm trying to be better about reading them as they're entering my library. So let's just take a look at the books I'm hoping to read. So I have the stack here. I actually had 4 pre-orders left, but the last one is the 3rd book in a series that I actually haven't started. I'm getting better at this. I've gone back and started canceling any further books into a series than I've actually read to. Pre-orders for those, I'm trying to be better about that. But I have these 3 here that are not further into a series than I've read that I haven't gotten to yet. So we have Finally Drop It, The Last Blood Carver by Vanessa Lee, Mysterious Case of the Albertan Angels by Janice Hallett, and The Book of Illyrian by Martha Wells. These are all books I'm really excited for. I haven't read any of Martha Wells' fantasy, so I'm interested to see how I like it in comparison with the Murderbot stuff. I also know that I do love Janice Hallett's writing. I really loved The Appeal and The Christmas Appeal. I struggled a little bit with the Twyford Code, but I think that was more a timing thing than an actual issue with the book. I think I just need to go back and give it a new start. But I am very excited for this one because I think this one is more mixed media rather than just emails. So I'm really interested to see what she's going to do with this kind of broader variety. And then lastly, The Last Blood Carver just has a really cool sounding magic system because it's got a kind of medical based magic system in it. And I think that sounds so intriguing and fun. So those are the ones I'm going to be hopefully reading this vlog. I'm not entirely holding myself to this in case something goes, weird with timing and everything. But that's the goal for the vlog, is to clear out these 3. And I'm not sure where I'm going to start, but you'll see in just a moment which one I decided to start with. I decided to kick things off with The Mysterious Case of the Albertan Angels because this is the one that's been sitting on my shelf the longest, and one of my classmates was reading this recently and was saying that it was just so good. She was just absolutely raving about how good it was and saying it was so much fun and it was much more similar to The Appeal than the Twyford Code. So that just really kicked it up to the top of my want to read list, and I decided to start here. And I'm really glad I decided to start here because I am having so much fun reading this book. I am a little past halfway now and I'm just obsessed. I keep having to pick it up and read a few pages between other things because I just need to know what's happening. This is following Amanda Bailey, who's a journalist, she's a nonfiction writer, specifically true crime, and she ends up writing this new book about a case involving the Albertan Angels, who are a cult who were kind of unknown for the most part until this very strange sequence of events happened in which several people turned up dead and a baby was found at one of the scenes of the crimes, and then the baby has since disappeared. And so Amanda is now 18 years later trying to track down that baby because the baby will now be an adult and could tell their own side of the story, or could talk about living in the shadow of this case, all of those kinds of things. So she's trying to track down the baby, but finds out that a rival writer is also writing a book on the Albertan Angels and trying to track down the same child. And so they're working together to try and figure out what the heck happened with the angels. And it's just such an interesting story because that's just the setup. That's, the first few pages. And then it goes in so many different directions. There's so much detail here. There's different pieces of this mystery that are just taking these reporters in wildly different directions, and I'm just really enjoying the way that this is structured and all of the different little threads that it's creating and kind of pulling on. I'm also enjoying that there's this additional layer that we have the mystery that's being investigated, but because it's being presented as these were the documents that were gathered during our investigation and are now being presented to the reader to decide what to do with them. There's also this element where we're getting the publishing industry side of things. We're seeing how she got involved with this book project in the first place. We're seeing how things are being managed between her and this rival reporter and how they're navigating that relationship, how the different professional relationships are working, also the actual tactics that she's using to try and get information, and the ways that those are different from the ways that other people are using to investigate. And it's just really interesting the way that those two things are layered together, but it really works together because it's all a part of the same story, because she as the investigator is a part of the mystery now. And I'm just really enjoying those kind of layered elements of this and the different relationships that are kind of being developed, because I think in The Appeal you have these little summary sections with the lawyers who are supposed to be reading through the documents, so you get a little bit of their personalities. But I think that Amanda and Oliver, the other journalist in this, are really just fleshed out a lot more. They're much more developed, and I'm really enjoying like their part of the story, which is this like kind of now ongoing story of this case that happened, and now they're involved 18 years later in trying to figure out what happened. And I'm just enjoying that that's less like you're getting these stopping points where you're getting like a summary of what's happened so far, and more like you're following someone's actual investigation. I think it's just really well done, and I like the variety of media types that are being used. This has also gone in a couple of different directions already that I didn't see coming, and there's some like little details where I've been like really proud of myself for putting together some of the littler details, but like the overall picture I have not figured out, and there have been some good twists that have kind of caught me off guard, and I'm really excited to see how this is going to kind of wrap up and how all of those threads are going to be pulled together, because there's so many different pieces going on here, and I just think it's so clever, and I'm having a great time. It's only been a few hours, but I was so interested to see where this was gonna go that I could not get focused in on the project I was trying to work on. So I decided, since it was mixed media, I knew it'd be fast, I was just gonna finish it, and now I have. So it's been like 3 or 4 hours. I've finished The Case of the Alberton Angels, The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels, and I loved this. I think I like it even more than The Appeal. I like the kind of various threads that are being woven through, and I was kind of getting to the end and I thought, okay, there's still some things that haven't been explained. Maybe this is like a 4.5 for me because there's some things I would like to know more about, but then they all do get wrapped up. And I just loved the way that this came together in the end, because it goes in such a different direction than what I was expecting, and I like just all of the different plot threads and the ways that they get pulled together. So I had a great time reading this, and I really enjoyed some of the thematic stuff that was going on here. This is very much a book about responsibility and justice, and also like abuse of power. That's a really big theme here. And then also I think the other major through line is our vulnerability to being misled into being convinced of things that aren't true, and how like easily that can happen even if we think that we're not vulnerable to it, and sometimes because we think we're not vulnerable to it. And I just really enjoyed the way that that was explored here, and the way that everything kind of tied into some of the backstory as well. We do get some backstory on Amanda and Oliver, and I thought that that was really interesting in the way that that kind of got tied into this investigation about the angels, which is really good. So I just thoroughly loved this. This is a 5-star read for me, and I am feeling good still about saying this may be a favorite of the year, because I had such a good time reading this. It just consumed my mind. Like, I needed to know what happened, and that was why I was like, okay, I gotta just like walk away from this project for a few minutes, because I'm like trying to do project stuff and I keep opening this and reading a page and then doing something else and then opening this and reading a page. So clearly I just needed to find out what happened, and it's just so good. This was so fun. It's such a like quick and easy read, but there's just so many interesting things happening, and I had a great time. So that is the first of my pre-orders from last quarter that I hadn't gotten to yet. Done. And I can officially put that on my red shelves, which is very exciting. I don't know which one I'm gonna read next. You'll find out very shortly, but I'll decide probably in a day or two once I'm further along my projects. And I think I'm really excited for all of them. So yeah, I really don't know what I'm gonna pick yet, but you'll find out shortly. So I decided to move to The Last Blood cover next. Is it obvious that I'm putting off their like really big chunky one? It's Martha Wells, I know I'm gonna love it, but I wanted to go ahead and get the other quicker read out of the way. So I'm reading The Last Blood cover next, and I'm like 30-40 pages in here, and I am so intrigued right now. This is so much fun so far. So we're following Nika, who is a blood carver. She can alter human anatomy with just a touch, and right at the beginning of the book, this isn't a spoiler, it's in the description, and you know, it's literally the setup for the first chapter or two. Right at the beginning of the book, she is hired to come and heal somebody's wife, although she's actually posing as like a kind of snake oil salesman kind of a thing. She is a like homeopathic healer, but she doesn't actually believe in any of the stuff that she's doing. She knows that it's a con to get money. But she meets this couple, and she ends up feeling like very compassionate about the situation and decides to actually heal the woman, and this leads to her being clocked as a blood carver, and she is captured by the butchers and they are trying to sell her. So this is really interesting so far. I'm really enjoying what's happening here, because we're still in the kind of early bits where she hasn't been sold to anybody yet, but she is like trying to figure out how she's gonna like get out of the situation and what's gonna be the best course of action, and at the same time we're kind of getting these alternating moments of seeing what's happening with the butchers and then seeing what's happening or what's happened in the past as a part of her like backstory. So we learn a little bit about her family and the situation that she's in now that's put her in a situation where she is like conning people for money and is, you know, now captured by the butchers. But there's like a really awesome chase scene early in the book that was really fun to read, and I think that the descriptions in here are really fun because it's like just lush and lovely, and I'm really enjoying the way that everything is described, but also the writing is so snappy and it gets you from like point A to point B in such a like fun and entertaining way that I'm just having a great time like with the actual reading experience. And I'm so excited to see what's gonna happen with Nika because she's clearly like a practical and resourceful girl, and I want to know like how is she gonna deal with the situation she ends up in. I think we've just met the person who is going to buy her, and I know there's gonna be some sort of like murder mystery situation going forward, so I'm really curious to see where that's gonna go. I will say, if you don't like medical stuff and you don't like harm to animals, this may not be a good book for you, or at least not at this beginning bit. I know the medical stuff is gonna continue on, but there is a couple of scenes at the beginning with some harm to animals, and I would say like if that's gonna bother you, maybe don't pick this one up. But if you like medical magic stuff, this is so good. I really like the way that this system is described. I don't quite understand what kind of time period we're supposed to be in because she's kind of like seeing it, there's like automatons and things happening, and there's these mentions of homeopathy, but also there's like medical machines. I think the woman at the very beginning is connected to some sort of what almost sounds like a dialysis machine or something, though she's not like in kidney failure, but like there's some sort of machine that is pumping medicine through her, and I'm not quite sure what time period it's supposed to be set in, but I kind of don't care because the world is just so interesting. It's reminding me a little bit of like a more Vietnamese inspired version of the Dead Gen in Cairo kind of world, where you have that mix of like modern technology but also, or modern-ish technology and also magic. And I'm really enjoying it. It's so much fun so far. I'm only 40 pages in. It's already made me tear up and cry once, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Nika going forward because I'm really enjoying reading from her perspective. It took me a lot longer than I anticipated, but I did finally finish The Last Blood Carver, although I do have to say that length of time that I spent reading it, which was actually fairly close to a month, started this on April 22nd and it's now May 13th. That time does not reflect my enjoyment of this book because I really enjoyed this. I'm giving it 4 stars. I do have a couple of complaints, but overall I think this is really fun. The magic system is very cool. It's based in like science and anatomy, but it does have this kind of like spiritual element to it that I thought was really interesting. And Nika is a great protagonist. She's very practical, and she's the kind of person who like wants to be kind of ruthless and able to just focus on her own survival, but she's never really been able to do that because her heritage is really important to her, and her family really instilled in her this like care for others, and she just can't help her desire to help others and to heal other people. And so I find that really interesting, that like a lot of the situations she gets into are because she's so like compassionate and ultimately kind. Even when she wants to be ruthless, she just like can't bring herself to be ruthless. And I really enjoyed that aspect of her character and seeing the way that she grew across the course of the story and moved from like trying to run away from things to trying to like solve problems head on. I really liked her growth, and I liked the friendships that she developed with the other characters, especially Trin. Her friendship with Trin really just was like so sweet. There's also a romance in here for Nika that I think was a little bit underdeveloped. It's one of like my only issues with this book, is that some of the relationships are a little underdeveloped. I think the friendships get a lot of page time, but this romance feels like it jumps from like antagonistic to suddenly we're friends and confidants and acting like we've known each other for years to now we're in love and like having confessions of love. So it felt a little bit rushed. And I think it was just that we have one character who's trying to be very secretive, and so there's not a lot of space, I guess, for them to find that common ground, but I just would have liked to see a little more development there for that. I think it would have made the ending even more stressful. This has a very stressful ending, and it's got one hell of a cliffhanger that I'm really curious to see where that's going to go in book 2. But yeah, my only complaint there was really just that that was a little bit underdeveloped. I think my other issue with the book is, I have 2 other issues actually. One is that the timeline is a little weird, where stuff will happen and it'll be like, there'll be 3 events and it'll say that like, oh, it's been like many weeks. And I'm like, what have we been doing in the meantime? There's no mention of like what Nika has been up to, so it didn't feel like all that time was passing, and I think maybe that contributed to the feeling that the romance was a little underdeveloped. I think more time was passing than I was really aware of, because a lot of it was not being like given to us as like a sense of time passing. I don't know how to describe that exactly, but I didn't have a sense of time passing, and then it would just tell me like, oh, it's been months, and I would be like, what, how, when, where, why are we doing this? What's been going on? How come we've only done like 2 things in many weeks? But beyond that, again, this was just fun. I think the villain is also kind of obvious, although I did appreciate that the villain in here is very ruthless. I like that Vanessa Lee brings in some pretty dark elements, and she doesn't shy away from any of it. She just completely goes for it. The villain is very ruthless in a way that I really appreciated, and I really liked also just her commitment to the other dark elements that are included in the book. That being said, if you're not comfortable with like blood and gore and anatomical discussions, discussions of vivisection, cruelty to animals, any of that, I would say be careful going into this, because she definitely includes that here, and it's very much on page, but I think that she approaches things in a really interesting way, and I was, you know, just having a really good time all the way through. I think this is really fun. There are a few things that kind of disappear. There's some plot lines that kind of go nowhere that I would have liked to see more of, because there's some interesting like political stuff happening in the background that wasn't like necessarily directly relevant to what Nika was up to, but it felt like it was getting introduced and we're getting a lot of information about it, and then it was just kind of like dropping off and disappearing. So there were a few subplots that I think that happened to that I would have liked to see more of, but overall I just had a lot of fun following Nika on this like crazy adventure that she goes on, and I really am glad that Vanessa Lee committed to the ending that she put in here, because the ending is very tense, it's very intense, and it has a hell of a cliffhanger, and I'm kind of sad that I have to wait until next year to find out what happens, because I will definitely be reading book 2 of this. So despite my issues, I still had an absolutely fantastic time with this and just really enjoyed the writing. I liked the characterization of our main characters. I liked the way the mystery played out. I thought that there was some really fun, just kind of like fun character moments, some fun banter. I had a lot of fun reading this. I think that's the word that really describes it for me, is just that it was fun. It was a really great story, and yeah. I'm looking forward to reading the sequel sometime next year, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself now in the meantime, because now I have to know about the end of this book and not have any resolution to it. But yeah, really enjoyed this, highly recommend it, especially if you like YA fantasy already. I think she does a really great job of writing like teenagers that are convincing. Like, I get why Nika's making terrible choices, but in some cases she's not even making terrible choices, she's just making good choices but with a lack of resources, and I thought that was really done well as well. So yeah, really enjoyed that one. Now I'm down to just the Book of Our Inn, which I think I'm going to break up into the 2 separate books that make up the full bind up, and probably read something in between them, because that's going to be a lot of that at once. So the more that I've thought about it, the more that I've realized that I don't want to try and push myself through the Book of Our Inn right now. I do really want to read this still. I know I'm going to love it, and I'm really excited to read it, but I've realized based on some reviews that I've seen that have talked about how this is very good, but also like very slow and dense, and it takes a long time to get through, and I just think this is not what I need to be reading right now. I'm very much struggling with a slump at the moment, which I think is basically caused by the fact that at the end of my graduate program I was doing a lot of like very intensive reading and writing, and then I very suddenly am doing nothing, and so that like adjustment has been really difficult, and I'm just not having luck with reading much right now. So I feel like what I need to do is take a step back and not try to push myself through something like this that is massive and slow, and let myself do a little bit more mood reading, which will hopefully help me get out of that slump so that I can someday return to this book. I think that it would be a disservice to both myself and this book to try and push through when I'm not feeling like reading it. So I'm gonna call this vlog, we're gonna end it here, but I'm really happy with what I did get done in this vlog. So I managed to finish The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels and The Last Blood Carver, and I really enjoyed both of them. I think I gave Mysterious Case 4.5 stars, and or possibly 5 stars, I think it was 4.5, and The Last Blood Carver I gave 4 stars. These were both a ton of fun. I really enjoyed them both. The Mysterious Case of the Opportune Angels is such a fun mystery. I love the way the clues are kind of set out as like little breadcrumbs throughout, and I just think it's a really great version of a mixed media mystery. And then The Last Blood Carver was just super fun. It has such a neat magic system, and there's so many like intricacies to it that I'm excited to learn more in the next book. I also just loved Nika as a protagonist and the way that she developed friendships with the other characters. I would have liked to see a clearer timeline and more development of her relationship with Venkochan, but I still really enjoyed the book. I had a lot of fun reading it, and I gave it, again, 4 stars, so clearly had a good time, and I'm very excited to read the sequel next year. So really, this was a pretty successful vlog, even if I didn't get through all 3 of the books, but I just don't feel like forcing myself to read that is the right choice right now, especially knowing that I had such a good run with the books in this vlog so far. So we're gonna end it here, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it ended up getting cut a little bit short, but if you enjoyed it, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.